There are lots of ways to paint chrysanthemum leaves, and you can look at the presentation, at the examples, and see a bunch of different ways. I'm just going to show you what I think are the more simple methods. They also come, the basic shape is the same. They're kind of an oval shape. They have 5 to 7 lobes. On some of the plants, they're a little more pointed at the ends, on some more rounded. This is probably more common shape. They're more divided, some are more compact. I have 3 dilutions of paint. I have very, very dark, and a medium, and then quite light. And I'm gonna start with a light. So they're going to look a little blobby at first. We're going to do things to give them definition. I'm putting some darker paint here at the end. Sometimes it will just naturally kind of gather there. Sometimes I'll add a small amount, like one that goes over on this side. It's turned. I'll just gather the excess there. So you can start with a pretty light leaf like this. You can go darker if you'd like as well. I think it's nice to have a variety and a variety of sizes. There definitely are a lot of sizes. So here's a smaller leaf, one that's turned even more. I'm not worried about too much at this point about them looking perfect. I've painted some here already so they could dry, so I could show you how to add details. I'll make some darker leaves. The point is, as you're painting, is just make sure you're consistent so that you're using the same style of leaf throughout. They can vary in value, and in size, but the shape should be the same. Here are some where they have sharper lobes. I'm just using my number 6 brush, which I think is a good all-around size. But you could use a larger one. I wouldn't use a smaller. All right, so there's kind of how to start. Then you want to let them dry. These have dried, they're pretty dry. Not completely, but okay. So now I have my number 1. Oh, let me show you one other thing that you can do if you want to. You can also paint these in green. And I mixed up some green paint. If you do use the green, so I have some of the Viridian, that dark green. I added some burnt sienna to it to dull it because it's the complementary color, sort of. And then I also just added some black. I want to make sure if I use green, make sure it's not super bright. So that's pretty good. So I'll do a couple of those as well and then show you what to do with them. Definitely look at the examples and it will help you as you are building them into your final and as you're practicing. Okay, so there's some greens. So we'll go back to those. I'm grabbing my number 1 and I'm using the dark paint. I don't want to be like super crazy dark, but pretty dark, so that will contrast. And here I'll add some details. I can do an outline, so something kind of like this. Definitely keep it loose. Don't do a heavy, cartoony sort of outline around the whole thing. I'm just giving it a little bit of, little structure. That's even maybe a little more than I normally would do, but I think it'll work. So there, you can outline them like this. You can, if you'd like, not do any outline and just have, just get some of those veins in the middle. I think that's a nice look, although, you know, on something like this, I might have just a bit around the sides so that there's a shadow. You can also just leave them like they are. Although I think that adding some detail helps with the overall look of your piece. On these darker, I'm gonna do the same thing. It's just not going to be as high contrast. That line's way too thick. Pull that out. See if I can kind of just push that down a little bit so it's not as obvious. But don't be too specific. You want to stay loose. Okay. And then I can go to the green. So I could go back over this with black if I wanted, but I'm going to mix up a little more of the original color. Just darker. And this isn't very dry yet, but I think it'll be fine. So this is a good opportunity to add some color to your piece if you're tired of working in just black and white. And if I were doing green leaves like this, I would use color on my flowers as well. So practice a bunch until you feel like you can make it look effortless. And look at the examples that I gave you.